Ladies and gentlemen, behold, the Weremoose. Yes, this is a new option for player characters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and yes, I am using this as my teaser for today's video. But you have to admit, Paizo went a lot harder with this artwork than they actually needed to, and I think we are better off for it. Today, we're going to talk about the new book for Pathfinder 2nd Edition called Howl of the Wild on today's episode of The Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello travelers and tourists, my name is Mark and I am the local disaster tour guide. That's right, I'm a storyteller that understands sometimes the journey is just as important as the destination. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and welcome to my review of the new book for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Howl of the Wild. This 226-page book takes a look at nature-themed options that you can use to enhance your Pathfinder 2nd Edition game. This book is structured as a report from the Uruxi scholar Barenthet Zamindi as he boards the airship known as the Zoetrope along with 6 of his scholarly friends and embarks on a quest to seek out the mysterious and legendary Wardens of Nature. Along the way, he and his companions discover new and fascinating aspects of the natural world around Golarion, and they record their fascinating discoveries so that the wider world can share in the wonder that they have experienced. Howl of the Wild is approximately 226 pages, it has an MSRP of $64.99, and it will be releasing later this month in May of 2024. So today, what I'm going to do is offer a brief overview of the book Howl of the Wild, including a very quick glimpse at the content that it offers, and give you my thoughts about this product as a whole. Now, there are a few important things that I want to let you know up front. First and foremost, I need to let you know that Paizo actually sent me a free PDF of Howl of the Wild for purposes of making this review. Now, this is very much a product I was already interested in, and I do have a physical copy of the sketch cover of this book on order with my local gaming store, so this was already a product I was planning on adding to my collection, but Paizo did send me a free PDF in order for me to make this video, and I do want to say thank you to Paizo for doing that. Paizo did not attempt to influence this review in any way, but I do want you to be aware that they did send me this copy. This leads into the second thing that I want to say about this review video. So as always, let me say, remember that the opinions in this video are just that, opinions. These are the thoughts of one random guy on YouTube, and the best review that you're going to get of any product is always to try before you buy. I highly recommend that you check out products like this at your fine local gaming store or maybe borrow it from a friend. It is always best to get first-hand experience with a product before making a purchase decision. The final thing that I want to say about this review is I'm going to be skimming very quickly through the content in this book because with summer break from my job as a school teacher coming up, I actually have the opportunity to do some crossover work with other channels. So in the next few weeks, I'm actually going to be doing some crossovers with the channel Team Player Gaming and the channel Goat King Dice. So with the channel Team Player Gaming, we're actually going to take some time and dive a little bit deeper into the new ancestry options that are presented in this book. And then with Goat King Dice, we're going to do a crossover that dives into some of the new class and character options that can be found in this book. So if it seems like I'm going through things very quickly in this video, that's the reason why I do plan to come back to this book and talk about a lot of its content more in depth, because I do think Paizo has done a really good job with this product, and there is a lot of fun stuff to explore. As a result, this video will be more of an overview, but I still hope it will be helpful to you as you consider whether or not this book is something that you might want to add to your collection. Now, before we go any further, please remember to do all of that stuff that helps to support the channel. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can check out my free Discord and my Patreon. Both of those will be linked in the video description below. And with all that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, with any review video that I do on this channel, I like to begin at the end, give you my overall thoughts on this product, and then work my way through the product to help you understand how I came to those conclusions. And honestly, Howl of the Wild is a very, very solid book. I like a lot of what I see about this product, but I do want to say up front that this product is a little bit unusual to approach. And in a large part, that is a reflection of the fact that this product is not necessarily aimed towards one particular group of Pathfinder players. The best comparison for Howl of the Wild, at least in my opinion, is the previous product that Paizo did called Book of the Dead. If you have seen my review of Book of the Dead, you would know that I actually split that review into two different sections because part of Book of the Dead was really oriented towards player characters, and the other parts of Book of the Dead were oriented very much towards the Game Master side of the table. And honestly, Howl of the Wild is very much the same. You have about 120 pages that is very much player character focused content. Lots of new options, new toys, new things that PCs can take advantage of, new things that new players are going to have a ton of fun with. You have about 120 pages that are really devoted to the kinds of content that players truly love. Then you end up with about 106 pages of what is essentially Game Master focused content. New creatures from simple to mighty that a storyteller can include in their game and use to bring the world of Golarion to life. This is very much a book where both players and GMs are going to find content that is useful to them, but at the same time, players and Game Masters will find that the portions of the book that they are interested in are very distinct from one another. Now, given the fact that player character options take up about 120 pages, I would say that this book is geared more towards the player side of the screen, but it's a pretty close split between the two, so ultimately I think there's a decent balance here, but that does make this book a little bit hard to evaluate. Anytime I grade a book, I like to give an initial grade and then an overall grade to set the expectation for what I think a book needs to achieve, and then to measure whether or not the book actually met that goal, exceeded that goal, or maybe fell short. As Howl of the Wild is a book that is focused on very thematic content for both players and Game Masters, I think the best initial grade here is probably a C. This is very obviously a product that is going to be more useful in certain types of campaigns and less useful in others, so I think that initial grade of a C-tier product is a good way of setting expectations for this book. It'll be useful in some circumstances, but not necessarily all circumstances, and so long as the product effectively meets that goal, we could say that Paizo hit the mark. Now let's talk about my actual grade for this product, which is, I'm giving this product a B+. Honestly, Howl of the Wild is really, really well put together. Paizo overshot my expectations with this book to such a degree that I'm honestly still kind of in shock. I have skimmed through this PDF multiple times since Paizo sent it to me, and every single time I dive in, I find some new, interesting, cool thing that I want to use in a game. There's stuff that appeals to me as a player, there's stuff that appeals to me as a storyteller, there are options included in this book that weren't even on my radar. Honestly, Paizo really overshot my expectations with this product, and I consider this book to be a fantastic offering. In fact, the main reason I'm not moving this into A tier is just because it's a little bit of a scattershot product. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. Paizo covers a lot of bases here, but this does feel like one of those products where you're probably going to find one or two really cool things that you latch onto and take to your game, and the rest of the stuff is probably just going to sit on the side forgotten until a future campaign where it becomes appropriate. Is the content of Howl of the Wild good? Definitely. But it is still a situational product, and when you're making decisions about what to add to your collection, or how quickly to add something to your collection, the situational nature of a lot of this content means that this is a product that is worth picking up, but that you might want to put off until you've had the opportunity to add more essential or regularly usable items to your collection, ultimately relegating Howl of the Wild's final grade for me to a very strong and certainly noteworthy B+. Alright, let's take a look at some of what this book has to offer so that you can understand how I came to that conclusion. The first chapter of this book is called The Zoetrope and Its Crew. The Zoetrope is the amazing airship that serves as the vehicle for the journeys in this book, and I'll go ahead and say, near the end of the book, they actually give you a very detailed map of the Zoetrope in case you want to make use of this airship or a similar airship in your games. However, the majority of the first chapter is actually going to be devoted not to the Zoetrope, but to the new Ancestries that are represented in this chapter. 6 new Ancestries are being added to Pathfinder 2nd Edition: the Athamaru, the Awakened Animal, the Centaur, the Merfolk, the Minotaur, and the Circe. And one of the things I really appreciate about this section of Howl of the Wild is they have a page dedicated just to the special rules associated with the new Ancestries that are being offered here. You have special rules for large PCs, special rules for tiny PCs, special rules for if one PC rides another PC. You have rules for aquatic PCs and rules for flying PCs. And at the end of the section on flying PCs, they even have a small discussion of what you might want to do as a storyteller if you want flying to be more readily available for low-level characters. It talks about the considerations that go into that and the adjustments that you might make if someone wants to play a flying character at first level. You get quick one-page blurbs describing the different characters that are riding on the Zoetrope: Charklea, the scribe for the research party, Grefu, the cook, Dr. Palm, Lythea, the navigator, Tolero, the scout, and Tin, or whose antenna is askew, the mechanic for the airship. You can see that Paizo has taken the time to flesh out each of the new Ancestries in the form of the characters in this book to give you an idea of how these characters might be incorporated into an adventuring party. Honestly, all of the characters described here are pretty interesting and could serve as the inspiration for a player character in almost any Pathfinder 2e game. In fact, if I have one gripe about this product, I really think it would have been fun if Paizo would have given us some free PDF character sheets of the characters from the Zoetrope for Pathfinder 2e players to use alongside some of the other iconic characters that you can already download. Is it strictly necessary? No, but I think it would have been a cool offering. The first new ancestry are the Athamaru, which are the fish folk for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The second and easily most versatile new ancestry is the Awakened Animal, which allows you to create a player character that was once an animal that somehow gained sentience. The most likely way that this happened is through the Awakened Animal ritual, but more mysterious paths may have been taken as well. And as a quick teaser that you can see over here, you will notice that the Awakened Animal ancestry is designed to work with tiny, small, medium, or possibly even large animals. Our third ancestry is one that I've seen a lot of people talk about over the years as something they wanted included in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and that is the Centaur ancestry. And I have to say a special thank you to Paizo, because my wife has been begging me for the opportunity to play a merfolk in Pathfinder 2nd Edition for about 2 years now. So the fact that the merfolk ancestry is included in this book is something that has definitely been in demand at my table, and I'm excited to see it included here. Another new ancestry option is the Minotaur, and I think Paizo has an interesting take on the Minotaur ancestry and some of the myths surrounding Minotaurs in our world. I feel like Paizo did a good creative job here, but as a strong contender for my favorite new ancestry, the last new ancestry in this book is the Circi, which are a kind of insect folk that have recently returned to the surface of Golarion. Now again, I'm not going to deep dive all of the options in this video, I'm saving that for my crossovers later, but I will tell you that the Circi ancestry reminds me a lot of some of the creative stuff that Paizo did with the automaton ancestry in Guns and Gears. So if you enjoyed what Paizo did with the automaton in Guns and Gears, Circi is offering some very similar ideas, and I think it is very intriguing. This is very much an ancestry that I personally want to try out at some point. Once you move past the new ancestries, you move on to the second chapter, which is called Techniques and Tricks. This is your new class and archetype options section in this book, and trust me when I say there is a ton of stuff here. The first section is called Untamed Morphs, and this is all about options for barbarians and druids that want to expand upon abilities that have either the morph or polymorph trait. Now, we're still waiting on the remastered version of the barbarian to drop in Player Core 2, so I will admit I have not dug too deeply into this section. I really want to see what the new version of the barbarian looks like before I come back and see how this stuff is going to interact with it. But if you're playing a barbarian or a druid, you have a lot of new options. You also have a number of new options for rangers, including new warden spells, and yes, they do take some time to talk about the interesting note that rangers use warden spells, and there are these legendary monsters called Wardens of the Wild that the crew of the Zoetrope is trying to find. Is this a coincidence, or is there some deeper connection here? Paizo doesn't give us a straight answer, but they do give us a ton of new options. Additionally, Paizo gives us 3 new patron options for the Witch. All of these options are associated with the primal spell list. The first one is the Devourer of Decay, the second one is called the Ripple in the Deep, and the third one is known as the Whisper of Wings. There are new hex cantrips and lessons and feats associated with all of these, and if you're playing a witch, there are definitely a lot of options here. If you saw my review of Player Core 1, I felt like the witch got a little bit more of a push than the wizard, and with the new options that are presented in Howl of the Wild, at least at present, I feel like the witch is really winning the caster race against the wizard in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There aren't any really wizard-focused options in this book, which thematically I understand, but it does hurt a little bit that what is historically my favorite class in TTRPGs is pretty clearly lagging behind at the moment. Still, if you're a witch player, there are new options, and they are definitely enjoyable. Next up, we have rules for a new bardic muse called the Zoophonic Bard. This is essentially a bardic muse that ties bards closer to nature. Now again, not deep diving the options here, but if you've ever wanted to play a summoner bard, that seems to be what they're going for with this particular set of options. And I do have some opinions on this, but I will save that for the crossover with Goat King Dice. From here, you begin to dive into some archetype options. First up, you have the Beastmaster archetype. The full rules for the remastered Beastmaster archetype will be released in Player Core 2, so right now we don't actually have the remastered version of the Beastmaster available, but you can use the Legacy version for now, and when the remaster version becomes available, there are more options here. Next up, you have an archetype called Claw Dancer, which is all about taking full advantage of natural attacks. in order to use this archetype, you must have some kind of permanent unarmed claw or talon attack. This could come from an ancestry, from a class option, or possibly from a graft, which is a new option that we'll talk about later, but this is essentially a new combat style focused around those natural weapons that you have access to. The next archetype that is presented is called the Astili Host, and this is tied very closely to the Circe ancestry. Since we aren't really digging into that new ancestry in depth in this video, digging into an archetype specific to that ancestry is beyond the scope of this video as well, but if you're really interested in Circe lore, this is a way to take a Circe character in a very unique direction that is specific to that new ancestry that Paizo has given us. One of the archetypes that I've seen the most conversation around is the new Swarmkeeper archetype, where you're playing a character who literally hosts a swarm of insects inside of your body that you can direct to do your bidding. I've seen a lot of conversation around this one, and a lot of people are pretty hyped for this. The creepy factor is high, but I think the fun factor could be pretty high on this one as well. The next archetype is called the Flippant? We'll go with Flippant contestant. And this is all about creatures that have a prehensile tongue or tail, and the unique fighting style that they can use that incorporates that prehensile tongue or tail. This is another one of those options that's going to be very narrowly focused on certain ancestries or options inside of the game, but if it applies to you, it could be a fun thing to take advantage of. Arguably the archetype I am the most excited for is the Were Creature archetype. This allows you to play a lycanthrope of some kind. And while I'm not going to dive into all the options, I do want to jump down to this table that they offer that shows that this archetype covers Werebat, Werebear, Wereboar, Werecrocodile, the Weremoose, I'm still hyped for that, the Wererat, the Wereshark, the Weretiger, and the Werewolf. There are a lot of options here, there's a lot of fun things here. I am incredibly excited for the Were Creature archetype, and this is honestly one of my favorite offerings in the entire book, but we will go more in depth on this when I get to my crossover with Goat King Dice, so we'll set this aside for now. The book also grants access to a new archetype called the Wild Mimic that is all about mimicking what you see in nature. If you remember the character Gao from Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy III if you're using the American numbers, the Wild Mimic archetype very much feels like that character Gao from Final Fantasy, and if you've ever wanted to play that style of character, this seems to be designed with that character concept in mind. Our last archetype is called the Winged Warrior, and as I'm sure you can tell from the name, this is a combat style archetype that revolves around the idea that your character has wings and you're taking advantage of those wings in battle. Again, this is kind of niche, it's going to be dependent upon your specific character concept, but if it applies, again, this could be a lot of fun for you. This character options section is going to close out with a new list of spells, and there are a ton of fun offerings here, though possibly my favorite is the new incarnate spell, Summon Stampede. Because yes, me and my friends do have a standing joke about killing off a villain with a herd of stampeding sheep. That is now an option for me in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and since it humors me, it's one of my favorites in the book. The next chapter is called Supply Runs, and this is your new gear chapter. Although I do think it's a little bit strange, they include new animal companions in this chapter, when I really feel like the new animal companions would have been a better fit in the previous chapter. I don't like thinking of animal companions as gear, but either way, you've got a lot of new animal companions, including options that I think a lot of people are going to find very interesting, advanced companions. These are essentially animal companions that have a level requirement before you can take advantage of them, but other than that, they follow the normal progression rules for how you would build an animal companion. So for example, you have things like a giant frog, a giant wasp, or what may be one of the most exciting options, the griffin. There are actually a lot more than this, but I'm trying to move quickly, so let's move on to Grafts. Grafts are essentially magical items that can be attached to your character permanently through the use of the medicine skill and a new skill feat. Now, they do give you some rules up front about how to use Grafts. A character that wants to implant a graft must be at least expert in medicine, they need to have the appropriate formula, and they need to take the Graft Technician feat, which is a 3rd level skill feat. You have rules on implanting a graft, damaging a graft, and even what the graft trait means. Grafts are considered invested and magical items, so they're going to follow those rules normally. And then you just have a lot of grafts that you can potentially attach to your character. Bioluminescent stripes, bristling spines, the classic gills that you see illustrated here. These are all upgrades that you can make to your character and their body to make you more effective. After Grafts, you come to a section for beast armor and armaments. This is armor and weapons inspired by nature. You also have a host of new alchemical items. We're still waiting on the remastered version of The Alchemist to be released in Player Core 2, but when the new version of The Alchemist comes out, it's going to have a whole bunch of extra options that are already available for it thanks to Howl of the Wild. Again, I don't want to dive into every single option, but I would like to draw your attention to the new Hydra mutagen that you can imbibe and grow an extra head. This is terrifying and awesome. I love it and I hate it, and I'm glad Paizo went there. This is going to be fun. You also get a selection of new gear. Things like animal blinds, catch poles, high contrast goggles. 2 particularly noteworthy items are the Supra Marine chair and the Land Delver's chair. These are essentially water tanks on a wheelchair that allow water-based ancestries like the merfolk to participate in land-based adventures normally. You're also going to get some big game siege weapons, and there is a ton of fun options here. And Paizo also takes the time to offer us some new spell catalysts that characters can take advantage of as well. And all of that taken together covers the new player character focused options in Howl of the Wild. I barely stopped to consider any of the options along the way, and it's taken a while to do all of this, so you can tell Paizo has crammed this book full of new options for player characters, and if you are a player, definitely take some time to look through the new options that Paizo presents, because I think you're going to find at least a few things that are worth considering. From this point, we move on to Golarian's Menagerie, which is essentially the new creature bestiary that is part of this book, and at this point you're really moving into the Game Master focused content. If you're playing a summoner, some of this stuff might be interested to you, but for the most part from this point on, this is the GM's portion of the book, and this is where you're going to find the new monsters, the new creatures that players can encounter and battle and possibly get treasure from. There's a lot of cool ideas in this section. One thing I really want to highlight is Paizo actually took the time to give us several new creature adjustments. In addition to the elite and weak adjustments that we're already used to, you also get amphibious, frostbound, miniature, sandbound, twinned, and winged. I really like these adjustments, and I hope that Paizo offers some adjustment cards, or maybe puts these on the remastered version of the advanced GM screen. Having the rules to quickly adjust creatures and make variations of creatures is something I find very useful as a storyteller. I really appreciate these adjustments. They're a cool addition in this book, and I hope Paizo gives Game Masters a way to quickly access these when we might want to use them. Now, I'm not going to take a look at every single new creature that is in this section. There's a lot of fun stuff here. One of my favorites is the Apothecary Bee. This is basically a bee that mixes potions. We also get a new Royal Basilisk, and a variety of options for chimeras. Like, seriously, take a look at all of these new chimera head options. You can build your own chimera, and it is amazing. Of course, you're going to get some new dinosaurs. You knew that was going to show up in a book like this. And one of the things that Paizo has teased a lot are some of their new elemental birds, like the Chaos Falcon. Really and truthfully, there are a ton of new creatures here, and as a storyteller, you're going to want to dig through and find some of the interesting stuff that you can throw at your players, let them encounter. There are a lot of really great potential stories here, but what I want to do is go ahead and jump to the final chapter, which is called The Dark Night and covers the Wardens of the Wild. The Wardens of the Wild are 4 CR22 unique creatures that cover various significant portions of the natural environment in Golarion, and come with a full epic stat block that you can use if you want your characters to encounter and potentially battle these creatures. Here, for example, we see the Warden of Forest and Meadows, which honestly has my favorite artwork of these 4 wardens. All of them are cool, but I absolutely love this artwork. I think Paizo did a fantastic job with this creature. And one of the things you'll notice is the wardens come with abilities like Fox's Wager, which is listed down here, which represents a boon that the warden can grant to player characters. Meaning, these aren't just creatures that your characters can fight, but also creatures that your characters might negotiate with, haggle with, serve for one reason or another, and maybe even receive blessings from. The book is going to close out with an ability glossary, and some creature by level tables, your glossary and index, all of those things that you expect to be part of a normal book. But all of that taken together is Pathfinder Howl of the Wild. As I've said, I really think Paizo went so far above and beyond what I was expecting with this product. This is a thematic book, and it's one of those products that in certain circumstances, yes, it's going to be useful, but in other circumstances, it could sit forgotten on your shelf and you wouldn't really care. This is one of those books where Paizo didn't have to go so hard, but they went harder than the artwork of the Weremoose. Because yes, this is my favorite artwork in the entire book. This thing is amazing and deserves just one more shout out. But seriously, this is very much a product that could have been easily overlooked or forgotten. This is a product that could have easily been glossed over, and it would have been forgivable. It's not necessarily a core part of the Pathfinder experience, but Paizo took the time to do this book and do this book well. There is a lot of fantastic offerings in this product, and whether you are a player or a game master, I think that there is a lot of stuff that is worth checking out here. Now, all of that being said, I still want to remind you this is thematic and niche content. And that means that a lot of the stuff in this book, while it is very cool, is not necessarily appropriate to every single game. And as a result, you want to think about whether or not this is a product that is going to be immediately useful to you. If you're running the right type of campaign, this could be a product that is an immediate buy. Pick it up now, you're going to get the mileage out of it. But if you're running a game that is more oriented to things like the big city and intrigue and political maneuvering, this is a book that's not really going to offer you much, and in that case, this is a book that wouldn't be as immediately beneficial. Now, I don't have my physical copy of Howl of the Wild yet, but this is very much a book that I'm going to be excited to pick up from my local gaming store soon, and I am very glad that Paizo gave me a PDF of this, because I have been having a ton of fun reading this book. This book could have been average and I would have been okay with that, but Paizo really brought their best game with this product, and overall I think this is an excellent addition to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There's a lot of stuff I'm going to be throwing at my players as a storyteller, and if I get the chance to play, there's a lot of options that I'm probably going to take a look at as well. But the time has come for me to turn the conversation over to you. What are your thoughts about Howl of the Wild, and do you agree with my rating of this product? Jump down to the comments section, let me know your thoughts and observations, where you agree, where you disagree. And if you have any particular questions about the content in this book, let me know. I'm going to be taking a look at the Ancestries more in depth with Team Player Gaming. I'm going to be taking a look at the class and archetype options more in depth with Goat King Dice. And there's still content beyond that that I definitely could be coming back to this summer. So if you have particular things that you want to see or want to hear me talk about, let me know and I would be very happy to consider it. Paizo's done some cool stuff here and I'm more than happy to take a look at it. Of course, don't forget to do all of the stuff that helps to support this channel. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Check out my free Discord, and if you're interested, you can check out my Patreon as well. All of that will be linked in the video description below. But, as always, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. Have a wonderful day.